to be able to beat the Yorgos Syndra deck, or will he be overrun by all of that offense?
There's one more match on that list. It will be the one we are watching for this quarterfinal. Alexis Skiskopoulos is going to be playing against Stefano Mioni. Vincent Iron Maiden stands in the way of Azalea Ace in the Hole's well-earned retirement. What do you think of this matchup, Gabe?
Well, I've been talking up Stefano as a player all weekend, and I can't sing his praises enough. I've played against him in a calling top 8 2 years ago at this point in a quarterfinal. Wow. But on the other side, we've got this Vincent. Azalea will have a tough time dealing with the assault from Vincent. Very few blues in the deck to deal with the Arcane Barrier, the Rune Chance, and not a very good way to block out these value-generating on-damage effects such as Deathly Wail, Widespread Destruction, and other cards that are in this Vincent deck. Can Vincent find those Widespread Destructions, that Arsenal Destruction against Azalea, or will Azalea's big dominate be too much for Vincent to deal with?
Yeah, Axeles here putting on a bit of a showcase with Vincent. Clearly something to study as we go forward into this format. These two players who have found their way into our top 8 on what would definitely be considered an underdog hero.
Absolutely. I think one of the factors in this matchup is that Vincent can usually play two ways. You're either usually blocking 2, swinging 2 kind of gameplay, where often your cards will go to block and they're there as additional, and then you want to be able to swing 1 Rune Gate of very efficient, maybe 2 or 3 Rune Chants out of that hero effect, and then 1 Rune Gate out of the Banish Zone. Or you want to be playing towards a setup. I think in Axelius' case in this matchup, he's going to be trying to go this sort of tempo-y game plan, giving some of these block cards where Azalea can't give block cards in response, gaining more health, so to speak, than Azalea can do, while they throw similar numbers at one another offensively.
We're kicking things off here with a Death Dealer activation. Loads of red in the ledger to get things started for Stefano. Some really interesting pieces of equipment face up on the table here as Azalea goes spinning for a better looking dominated arrow. We'll find Rain Razors, unfortunately. So no dice there. We'll play that out, get it out of the arsenal before continuing on passing our turn. Arcane Barrier 2, Spell Void 1 from that Enchanted Quiver from Stefano. I'm more infatuated with that Carrion Husk on the other side of the table for Vincent.
Carrion Husk is going to be really big in this matchup, and Axelia is getting rewarded for putting it in the sideboard here. Azalea is one of those heroes that can throw a massive number at your face. 6 blocks out a lot of it. You can prevent a red in the ledger on it, even through something like 8, 9 dominate, and you can just block when you're being hit for 14. You can gain some life back with this Carrion Husk.
We're quickly learning why Vincent may be having so much success in the face of Gravy Bones. Movrian Skies, an all-star from Crucible of War, lines up perfectly with the game plan of this deck, and you can, of course, guarantee that hit into those allies and make an abundance of rune chance.
Doesn't work quite that way in this matchup, given that Azalea does have the option to block, but like we've talked about, Azalea is not a hero that loves to block that much, so he's going to take the rune chant here, guaranteeing the life gain off Deathly Delight. Already value gain for Vincent, hard casting this Deathly Delight, but is forced to block. Otherwise, it's just too potent to give your opponent that many rune chants.
We see that flail being utilized to make the most of Go Again here. Threatens to make another rune chant if it manages to connect. A widespread destruction lurking in the banish zone here for Axeles. This one is a very potent rune gate attack in this matchup specifically.
Yeah, this is one of the cards you really want to be relying on in this matchup. It's unfortunate to pitch 1 on the turn that you get 1 into your banish, but as soon as Stefano looks like he's got a bit of a setup turn, Axelius is going to be able to be firing that destruction when he wants to. The flail, also a very powerful card in this matchup. Azalea doesn't have a lot of wand block on her equipment, so anytime Axelius can go again, rune chant, he gets the payoff on the other end. He uses 1 of his life to attack with the Flail of Agony, but that has 2 effects. First of all, it turns on the on-damage effects from the cards that he's playing, like the Deathly Delight and like Deathly Wail, and additionally, it's going to gain him a rune chant, meaning he's going to end the turn on a rune chant, regardless of whether he had a Malefic Incantation, to be able to rune gate 2 at the very least on his next turn.
Going to see a Lace with Frailty flipped over by that Skullbone Cross Wrap. Stefano taking a peek at that top card. Interesting facial expression there. Not sure what to make of what they found.
Yeah, I don't usually see Stefano think about this top card like this.
Making its way down to the bottom here. Clearly not good enough in their mind. We'll see that Lace played out to continue the turn. Seek and Destroy into Codex of Frailty will be the name of the game here. Likely pulling back that drill shot and making the most of that attack already existing in Axeles' graveyard.
Codex, a really effective card in this matchup. The reason being, those cards in the arsenal of the Vincent player are usually quite hard to cast. You don't want to be hard casting these rune gates. You want them to go to your banish zone. Though, Axelius having access to that widespread destruction in his banish zone, if he can find a way on the turn that he plays the widespread destruction to also deal himself a point of damage, that cheats that Deathly Delight into the banish zone from the on damage effect of widespread destruction. Punished a little bit by the Codex, but has a way to get that card to be playable again in the future.
Drill shot for 10 will be the line of... or if they should cover up the entirety of this drill shot.
I think he's debating, if he's thinking of blocking 9 here, does the loss 1 on the Carrion Husk, bringing it from a 6 to a 5, outweigh the loss of the Spellbound Creepers possibly being able to make your turns even wider when you do get given a little bit of space by Azalea, or if you need to kill them in one last big turn? In this case, valuing the Spellbound Creepers, which I think is a very important card even in these aggro matchups.
Yeah, the pendulum swinging the entire direction. Carrion Husk does pick up a counter as that drill shot connects for 10. We see Deathly Whale being banished here to generate a rune chant. And Axelius reaching for this Vexing Quillham. We've seen this time and again. 4 rune chants now being generated. Does enable these powerful 3-cost rune gates. We're going to see Machinations of Dominion here. I'm going to follow that with one of these big attacks to keep this turn spinning. Deathly Whale looking to make some rune chants.
Axelius understanding that this is an aggro matchup, willing to use those resources like the Vexing Quillhand, which is sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card in order to accelerate their game plan early in this game. Still attack, still deal Stefano damage, play out these Deathly Whales instead of losing them, and that'll be creating more rune chants on the back end for the next turn.
Yeah, can't help but notice a distinct lack of Malefic incantations for Axelius so far. This kind of engine piece that really ties this Vincent deck together, instead making the most of what they found between Movrian Skies and these Deathly Whales to find ways to generate rune chants and get this engine running regardless. We see Stefano taking those rune chants means this Deathly Whale will generate at least 1 rune chant for the trouble. 5 overpower, it's going to be the follow-up.
Axelius having to find a way to make the second rune chant off of it, maybe using the Flail. However, that would be IPing himself if he just goes use the go again into Flail. So possibly has a way to activate the Spellbound Creepers, pitching a card and playing a card, or he's just going to hard cast that Deathly Delight, happy with a decent damage output, 4, 5, and now 3 thanks to the double frailties, clearing that awkward card in Arsenal, but importantly continuing the change so that this rune chant from Deathly Whale doesn't pop in the middle of the turn, but instead carries around.
At minimum, gaining some life here thanks to that earlier damage from the Deathly Whale. As you previously assessed, just really heads-up choices here from our Vincent player. Understands this matchup is going to be a race. They cannot afford to take too many turns without pushing some sort of damage back, or they will fall behind. In exchange, we make our way back to Stefano. It is Release the Tension being revealed from the arsenal here. And we do see that Shelter from the Storm and a Haunting Rendition loaded up in Axelius' hand. Will have numerous ways to prevent damage this turn.
And this is the power of Vincent. We saw a turn that felt, on balance, only okay, right? He was playing a yellow Deathly Whale. He had to hardcast one of those rune gate attacks, which is not the way you want to be firing those, not the most efficient way, and he was under 2 frailty. And yet, despite it all, Stefano is now lower on life from an almost full life total at the start of the turn. So Axelius will be able to pump out insane amounts of damage in the upcoming turns.
Stefano here does follow up with that Release the Tension as the first buff of the turn. Axelius here maybe giving away a small amount of information by double-checking exactly where that stops defense reactions from. Death Dealer will be the follow-up, loading Infecting Shot in this case, having to pitch a red to do so. does not matter when Fiendel Spring Tunic is willing to pay the cost. This is an infecting shot for 14.
Again, Stefano playing differently in this game than the other times we've seen him on stream. Often he'll
heads-up choice in the face of that face-up widespread destruction. We will see Haunting Rendition committed to the blocks. Shelter from the Storm will join it. So interesting to see this. We see that Succumb to Temptation being held by Alexis here. So we're going to see that widespread ruin being banished, making a rune chant, and no doubt making its way in with that immediate discard effect potentially up for grabs.
he knows that eventually Stefano will have to Arsenal. If he's willing to take the clock given by the Blood Debt on this widespread destruction, he can either keep it there and take that clock and force Stefano to continue to choose not to Arsenal, or Stefano will at some point drop some Ponder in Arsenal and he'll get full value off of that. He just needs to start finding these Malefic incantations. That's what he's missing in this game. Every turn he's been limited to 1 or 2 rune chants depending on what the previous turn had, but very rarely has he ever been able to build additional rune chants going into the following turn.
2 rune chants make the way across. It will be widespread ruin now connecting alongside Succumb to Temptation. 6 damage will make its way through. Alexis will generate an action point due to playing the Succumb as an instant, and we will look at this hand from Stefano together. It is 3 buffs and an amplifying arrow. This Succumb feels like a bit of a disaster.
Incredible timing for playing that Succumb with Stefano only having that 1 arrow. He has that 1 out thanks to the take aim where he can put a card into Arsenal and then opt. That's going to be his hope. Axelius thinking whether he wants to use this go again to activate that flail, deciding not to. It would be meaning losing 1 life from the flail activation, possibly a 2nd life from the widespread from the blood debt that might come off the top. I think it's pretty informed to do that. It's good to do that flail because if it hits, and which Ranger has a tough time blocking it, you're going to get a rune chant and have an easier time on your next turn firing the rune gate. But Stefano having that turned off turn kind of wanted to be able to block that flail.
Yeah, that blind Azalea there, unfortunately finding release the tension and just not quite containing the pieces to keep this game plan fueled. We'll see reduced to Rune Chant banished here to make the Rune Chant. Going to be playing a Deathly Delight the hard way from the hand alongside Shadow Puppetry here. So we're going to be granting go again to this. As a result, we'll have 6 points of power. We might find ourselves with an additional card on top of the deck that we're interested in. But should damage be dealt, this flail will essentially pay for itself.
I'm pretty fond of this play. He didn't pay with Vincent off the Shadow Puppetry, the reason being that he's already going to use this action point to activate the flail. He'll have lost a life this turn, which means Deathly Delight's going to gain him an extra life this turn. The flail, as you said, pay for itself. It's a very heads-up play to play this Deathly Delight with go again and hurt yourself, because when you're on the turn you're playing the Deathly Delight, any damage to yourself that you take is nullified.
Stefano here falling all the way down to 14. Willing to take this damage. The flail will follow. It will be 13 and a rune chant made, but a full 5 cards to work with. No, the Tunic. The Tunic has served its job here. Going to deny those rune chants a little longer, and that blood debt will be taken to bring Axelius down towards the life total of Stefano. 21 plays 14 here. And we have a whole hand available for our Azalea player. Cross wrap here reveals Laced with Blood Rot. We're going to take a peek at the top of the deck. Does not find what it's looking for. That buff will be played out. Death Dealer is loaded. We'll find ourselves with an arrow in the arsenal. It's red in the ledger. Going to shut down any potential of going wide this turn. We see more buffs deployed. It's going to be a gigantic attack for 14 here. You've got to feel like Carrion Husk has to get in the mix now.
Possibly on this turn. If not on this turn, then definitely on next turn based on the damage being presented and the fact that Carrion Husk has to be used for blocks before you go down to 13. It's unfortunate. Red in the Ledger is not necessarily a very powerful card against Vincent because they can do these very powerful single actions, but Axelius doesn't have that many excellent plays available to him, having no rune chants on the board to start this turn.
We see a block for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. It will be the red in the ledger covered entirely. The cost, however, we're going to see an activation of Spellbound Creepers for Read the Runes in the opposing turn to enable widespread destruction.
I think this is an incredible play. He's giving away his only Runegate card. He knows he already has one available. He's blocked with an attack action card there. That's why he did that. The Spellbound Creepers coming in clutch in a way that I know a lot of people in Vincent will think about it as an offensive card to gain that action point back after you've played one Runegate and then be able to play a second Runegate in this spot. Just enable that not only potent offensively but potent disruptively. Widespread one into the boots is great.
We see the Enchanted Quiver here being considered to stifle a point of arcane damage, a yellow codex pitched to cover the rest. So Stefano interested in defending the card in their arsenal from the impact of this widespread destruction. We see Skullbone Crosswrap picked up here and committed to the blocks. There will be no more opting with the infamous headpiece.
Still has Arcane Barrier available on the Stefano side from those Bullseye Bracers, so that's not the biggest loss in terms of that effect, but this is where we see some of that part of Azalea struggles to block, and Vincent requires blocks on some turns to turn off their ability. Stefano having a very nothing turn after having to give up.
Yeah, we'll have to have a word. Exilius here debating. They're going to be Snapdragon Scalers activated on this Amplifying Arrow. The follow-up, another copy of Codex of Frailty, threatening to swing tempo back dramatically here for Stefano Mioni.
You laughed at that 2 dominate. You didn't know that it was 2 dominate, go again, clear your arsenal for the Codex of Frailty.
Does it sound like I was laughing to you? 2 dominate, serious business, Gabe. Codex of Frailty here, going to cause some serious damage. Coming together, we're going to see Malefic Incantation on defense maybe, which is certainly not where you want to be. Discarded here for the Codex. Endless Arrow will be the follow-up for 4 points of damage here. Denying this, certainly of interest to Exilius, but I can't help but notice that Carrion Husk slowly ticking away in that Banish Zone.
Exilius definitely blocked with it in the right spot. He otherwise would have gone too low and wouldn't have necessarily gotten good value on it. For example, on this turn, he only would have been able to block 2 or 4 with it. So he blocked with it correctly, but he has to be able to find some rune chants over the next couple turns and set up one last big turn with that card like Mavrian Skies or whatever cards he's able to put into Runegate in order to threaten Stefano's life total.
We make our way back to Exilius. We find an Eloquent Eulogy as the card here. Means we are able to banish, make a rune chant, play Mavrian Skies, send 1 point of Arcane alongside 4 physical damage, threatening to make an Eloquence and 3 additional rune chant tokens.
And this is that power of the Runegate one. He didn't have the resources to do the hard cast here, so that Mavrian Skies wasn't playing that effect. But what it is playing is give me an extra card, because if you're playing this deny me the rune chants type game, then you have to block out this Eloquent Eulogy with the Mavrian Skies on hit. Otherwise, Exilius is going to be able to fire anything he wants on the next turn.
We see an Eloquence token made, a point of damage taken. Our Vincent player falling to 16 will be staring down a Hamstring Shot alongside Seek and Destroy. This arrow feels like it can be incredibly painful for a hero like Vincent.
Absolutely. Hamstring Shot makes them could be a good one. Runegate 1, even if he doesn't want to attack on this turn and just wants to banish something and pass with that Hamstring Shot, it's a good one to have in there for the future.
We'll see that Eulogy committed to blocks here, and Deadwood Dirge pitched away for reduced to Runechant. 1 damage making its way through, but a Runechant generated off the back of that defense reaction. Widespread Destruction will be banished to make a Runechant, and we'll be looking to pass the turn back here. No, we have access to...
It got destroyed by Seek and Destroy.
No, I got myself excited. I got myself excited for another Deadwood Dirge, and alas,
No.
Seek and Destroy ruining my fun, and Exilius's as well.
I respect this play a lot. I think what Exilius did there is he played the more patient game, set up that Widespread Destruction. Ultimately, in the equation, that Widespread Destruction is a very important card in this endgame state. He had ways to cast it on that turn. They would have meant taking quite a lot of damage because of the hamstring shot effect. So instead... copy of those all game, so he hasn't been able to draw into the cards that can get maximum value out of this Eloquence, and if he had played that Deadwood Dirge last turn, it would have gone away.
Some potent options in Exilius's deck, but they're going to need to find them fast. This Bologna shot has them falling all the way down to 6, with 2 Blood Deck cards in that banish zone, taking a toll on our Shadow Hero as Stefano considers their reload. And whether or not Death Dealer is the better way to do the job. They do indeed close the chain. No reload declared here. Will pitch away Spire Sniping to load in another Bolton shot and draw a card. What will we find from the top of the deck to accompany this Bolton shot?
Not a lot of ways for Exilius to use the second action point from the Shadow Puppetry here, and even less ways now that Stefano is presenting more damage on this turn and attacking with a bigger number that demands Exilius to block. And now, Stefano using that Knock the Death Whistle to go searching out a potent card. It might be something like a Hamstring Shot or a Red in the Ledger, making it even harder for Exilius to throw anything meaningful back at him.
See if we can see what Stefano's considering. Always just too far back, but it looks like Red in the Ledger will be the pick in this case. Looking to tag this one in with Dominate. Kind of getting a read, I think, maybe from Exilius' hand. Declared no blocks on that Bolton shot. Took the risk that all these cards are required to take multiple game actions. And Stefano Mioni is not interested in staring down multiple attacks. It will be 5 points of Dominate damage. That entire fridge has been torn apart. There is no way to stop this Red in the Ledger from connecting.
You mentioned that Exilius had signaled by saying no blocks that he wanted to do more than one thing on this turn with this hand. That's how Vincent works. That's how they're going to be using 4 cards. Red in the Ledger, therefore, a very good pick. Also, Dominate is going to leak a couple damage in, and with that Carrion Husk, if he just even dominates 5 a couple times in a row, Exilius is only outs to that or Haunting Rendition or a Sink Below that he can stick into Arsenal. Assuming those aren't in the case, 1 or 2 damage a turn, 1 from the Carrion Husk, Exilius is on a clock.
We see Widespread Annihilation dedicated to the blocks here. Will be 2 more points of damage, knocking Exilius all the way down to 4, but we do have 3 cards to work with to tie this hand together. Vincent will trigger at the start of the turn here. We'll see a banish to generate that 3rd Runechant. It's going to be the Shadow Puppetry. Otherwise, not making much use. We'll see Widespread Destruction as the play from the banish zone. 2 cards left remaining in hand here.
Unfortunately, the 2 cards just get stuck there as a result of not blocking that first link and then getting specifically the Red in the Ledger to follow it up. Banishing the Shadow Puppetry, an intelligent move to limit the blood that he's going to take and maybe be able to try to kill if Stefano can stumble here.
Stefano Mioni smells blood here. Will be falling to 3 from the Carrion Husk in the banish zone. Keeps an entire hand to work with. It will be Death Dealer loading the Spire Sniping. Gets to take a look at what they may find on top. Let's see if we can join in. They're keeping those cards on top. We see a Rain Razors, a Knock the Death Whistle. Will find the arrow that can gain a Dominate to try and close this door.
Didn't find it off the Spire Sniping, but has another knock in hand. Again, this Dominate seems like the answer to this puzzle, where both these heroes turn into this sort of block a bit, send a bit, block a bit, send a bit pattern, as often happens in Fab later in the lower life totals. In this case, Stefano finding anything. I don't know whether he has a buff in hand, but 5 block, 5 attack can be enough just on its own with that blood debt counter on Exilius' side.
That lace with blood rot will be the recipe of success here. 8 dominate will be enough for Stefano Mioni to close the quarterfinal. The story continues. Azalea Ace in the Hole is in our semi-finals.
I feel vindicated. We had a call last week, Scott, to prepare for this